Imagine an entire people whose history was nearly erased. A nation that lived on the northern edges of Japan and Russia long before the modern states we know today. They called themselves Ainu, simply meaning human. But for centuries, they were treated as if they were something less. Yet their story is one of survival, a struggle against colonization, forced assimilation, and near extinction. Today, only a few thousand remain. Who were the Ainu, and how did they become one of history's most forgotten nations? To answer that, we must travel back over 1,000 years to a world of icy seas, salmon-rich rivers, and an empire rising in the south. The Ainu lived primarily on Hokkaido, the northernmost island of Japan, as well as Sakhalin and the Kuril Islands, stretching into Russia. Archaeologists trace their roots to the Jomon people, who settled in Japan as early as 14,000 BCE. Unlike the rice-farming cultures of Honshu, the Ainu thrived as hunters, fishers, and traders in the north. But history is never kind to borderlands. By the 8th century, the Japanese Yamato state expanded northward, bringing new technologies, armies, and ambitions. And so began a clash between two worlds, the rising Japanese Empire and the independent Ainu. The first great conflict was the Emishi Wars. In the 700s and 800s, Japanese emperors sought to subjugate northern peoples. The Emishi, ancestors to the Ainu, resisted fiercely, but by the 9th century, the Yamato armies, armed with iron weapons and horses, forced them into submission. Some assimilated into Japan, others fled further north, evolving into the Ainu culture we know today. Still, the Ainu retained independence for centuries. They controlled trade routes rich in furs, fish, and hawks, which the Japanese coveted. By the 13th century, Ainu chiefs were trading with both Japan and Russia. But trade rarely comes without conflict. In 1457, tensions exploded into open war, a battle that would mark the first great Ainu uprising. This was the Koshimaine's War. The Ainu, led by a warrior named Koshimaine, rose against Japanese settlers in Hokkaido. At first, they succeeded, destroying forts and reclaiming land. But the Japanese retaliated with overwhelming force. Koshimaine was killed, his revolt crushed. For the next 2 centuries, the Ainu lived in a fragile balance, trading with Japanese merchants while keeping their independence. They supplied sea otter pelts, salmon, and eagle feathers, while importing rice, sake, and ironware. But by the 17th century, Japan's powerful Tokugawa shogunate took notice. And when the shoguns turned their gaze northward, the Ainu would face their greatest challenge. In 1604, the Japanese established formal trading posts in Hokkaido. The Matsumai clan was given exclusive rights over Ainu trade. At first, this seemed like opportunity, but soon it became oppression. The Ainu were forced into unfair deals, exchanging valuable goods for scraps. They were even enslaved to labor for Japanese merchants. In 1669, desperation boiled over. The Ainu chief Shakushine united multiple clans in rebellion. For nearly 2 years, they fought against Japanese domination. But betrayal and gunpowder ended their dream. Shakushine was assassinated during peace talks. His death marked the beginning of the end of Ainu independence. Yet even in defeat, the Ainu spirit refused to die. By the 18th century, Russian explorers entered the scene. Crossing Siberia and reaching the Pacific, they encountered Ainu communities on Sakhalin and the Kuril Islands. To the Ainu, this was both hope and danger. Russians offered trade in furs and firearms, but also claimed sovereignty. The Ainu were caught between two empires. By the 1800s, both Japan and Russia fought for control of their lands. The Treaty of Shimoda in 1855 split Ainu territory, Sakhalin to Russia, Hokkaido to Japan. The Ainu themselves were not even consulted. And then came the most devastating blow, the Meiji Restoration of 1868, when Japan modernized, industrialized, and sought to erase the Ainu forever. The Meiji government declared Hokkaido Japanese territory. Ainu were banned from fishing salmon, hunting deer, or practicing their traditional tattoos and rituals. They were forced to adopt Japanese names, language, and clothing. By 1899, the Hokkaido Former Aborigines Protection Act stripped Ainu of their land, placing them on small plots as farmers, an occupation alien to their culture. Generations of knowledge, religion, and oral traditions began to vanish. By the early 20th century, the Ainu population collapsed from disease, poverty, and assimilation. Where once there were tens of thousands, only a few thousand remained. Yet against all odds, whispers of revival began to rise in the 20th century. In the 1960s and 70s, young Ainu activists began demanding recognition. Figures like Shigeru Kayano, an Ainu leader, dedicated his life to preserving their language and culture. He even became the first Ainu elected to Japan's parliament in 1994. Finally, in 2008, the Japanese government officially recognized the Ainu as an indigenous people of Japan. And in 2019, the first National Ainu Museum and Cultural Park, Upapoi, was opened in Hokkaido. Today, perhaps 20,000 people in Japan identify as Ainu. A few hundred more remain in Russia. Their language is endangered, spoken fluently by less than 10 people. Yet their traditions, their ceremonies, songs, and crafts are being revived. The question now is not how they were lost, but whether the Ainu can rise again. The story of the Ainu is one of my resilience, from the forests of Hokkaido to the icy seas of Sakhalin. They endured colonization, betrayal, and assimilation. For centuries, they were written out of history books. But the Ainu remind us of a deeper truth. A people can be silenced, but not erased. Their story still lives, in memory, in language, and in the fight for recognition. And perhaps the final chapter of the Ainu is not one of disappearance, but revival.